The Denver Broncos just get a barrage of good news. Good news about our division rival, about a wide receiver currently on this roster who's set to make a massive leap moving into next year. Good news about a player falling to us in the draft. We've got a ton to break down. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me in the algorithm out a ton if you like the Broncos, if you would like and subscribe. All week we've been talking about the fact that it seemed like a lot of people were reporting that Matthew Stafford to the Raiders was a done conclusion, right? That he was going to go there. They were offering him $50 million a year to go there. Well, he is not going to the Raiders. So the first piece of great news is that's dodging a major bullet. You're seeing every single Broncos reporter say that Stafford played the Eagles better than Patrick Mahomes did. And although he's aging, he definitely is a top 10 quarterback still, and I don't like the idea of him pairing up with Pete Carroll. So fantastic news. We dodged a bullet there, and we don't have to play him twice a year. The reason that it even compounds and is even better than just not having him there is the fact that the Raiders were offering him a boatload more money. And so it just kind of shows to us that the Raiders are still a long way from being the relevant team that they want to be. And so the fact that they're offering him the bag, $50 million a year, and it's in Vegas where there's no state tax. That's a lot more money than it is. He's taking less money in a very highly taxed state of California when he could have had more money in a place that it doesn't get taxed, which all it does is show that nobody wants to play for the Raiders. That's fantastic. And then it gets even better than that. The Raiders are now turning their attention to Russell Wilson. So this could just be the best situation of all time. If Russell Wilson gets signed to the Vegas Raiders, I will just clock out of work, whatever I'm doing. I will just walk out and make a video where I just start weeping tears of joy, because could you imagine how fun that would be to have the Denver Broncos get to play Russell Wilson twice a year? We know what he will do there, and I think it's just a fantastic thing that you go from having a top 10 quarterback to a player that other teams are paying to not play for him. So just great news on that front. Other piece of great news, and maybe a bullet that we dodged, is that you'd heard the Denver Broncos name mentioned multiple times in the Deebo Samuel trade sweepstakes. And if Deebo ended up being cut from San Francisco and we could sign him on a much smaller contract, I'd be fine with that. But you have to not only give up draft capital to get Deebo Samuel in a trade, you then have to pay him a ton of money. And even without Christian McCaffrey when he got hurt, without Brandon Ayuk when he got hurt, Deebo was not able to make a difference whatsoever next year. And so I do think that we've seen the best of Deebo Samuel, and the Broncos are officially out of the Deebo Samuel sweepstakes, as it looks as if it's going to be the Washington Commanders who get Deebo Samuel. So I think that's a bullet dodge for the Denver Broncos to not have to bring in a me first type player, and just the amount of drama that could create in our locker room when Sean Payton has done an incredible job of getting all of these guys rowing in the same direction, and the team is bought in and has just an incredible culture. And so that's great. I also think that Sean Payton, when he went on and told Kay Adams he felt really good about our receiving room, I don't think that was smoke. I think he truly believes in this receiving room. And why wouldn't he? Because we're seeing highlights come out now of just how amazing Troy Franklin looks here in his kind of offseason conditioning. And really, we saw the best of Troy Franklin in that last game against the Buffalo Bills. How many times this season did we see Bo and Troy Franklin off by that much? I can think of several times where it was a overthrow, once in that one of the Chiefs games. Again, I think in that Tampa Bay game that he had him. And so, Troy Franklin, the fact that he's working this hard, you're seeing him put out tape of him running drills and all that, working right now when he doesn't need to be, to stay in shape and be ready. And we just saw what Troy Franklin and Bo Nix truly could be in this playoff game when it was when hopes were high and this bomb. And when I saw that it was Troy Franklin, I'm like, this hasn't worked all season long. And it worked when it mattered the most. Creating that amount of separation is just wild to do that in a playoff game. We know the Bills went on and almost beat the Chiefs, I guess, at some points there. So that's a very good team. And we went up 7-0. So I think very, very hyped if Troy Franklin can make the type of jump from year 1 to year 2 that we saw Marvin Mims do last year. Watch out, especially if Sean Payton ends up finding a tight end in this draft class that he's pumped about. Other piece of fantastic news that we get here is just hearing Tez Johnson, and he's Bo Nix's adopted brother. He lived with the Nix family for quite a while, and it truly calls Bo Nix his brother, and Bo calls him his brother. There are rumors that he was one of the volunteer receivers who actually was at the pro day last year when Sean Payton fell in love with Bo Nix the first time, and people are expecting just wild 40 times out of him. And if you take a look at his Senior Bowl tape, which we'll take a look at here in just 1 second, insanely fast dude. My question with Tez Johnson is his durability, and he looks like he's pretty slight framed, and so it'll be interesting to see what he weighs in at and how he looks in positional drills. But he came out and thinks that Bo Nix has the potential of being one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL, and he came out and said that he thought Bo Nix was the best quarterback in last year's draft. And if that's true, and we know there were 6 wide quarterbacks taken in that draft, man, if Bo Nix truly ends up being the best of that draft class, we are going to be happy in Denver for a long, long time. He did meet with the Denver Broncos and said the meeting went fantastic. So how wild would that be if you had Bo Nix and his actual brother in the same locker room? The Broncos have met with, here's this tape from the Senior Bowl, and you just see his shiftiness and ability to create separation, actually making defensive backs fall down at times. I think it's this clip here where literally this guy can't even stay on his feet. That's a guy who's trying to be in the NFL, who's covering him as well. So the Broncos have met with multiple Oregon Ducks, including the Oregon Duck running back and the Oregon Duck tight end, and Tez Johnson, obviously. And then here's some of that footage from, or here's him in the red zone. That's not what I wanted, but you just see, like, man, the ability to create that type of space inside such a small area. It's one thing to just beat someone with pure speed, but like the ability to create that type of space in such a defined small area is pretty unfair for sure. And just thinking he would just like eat people up. Pretty cool. So here's the footage I wanted to show. I think it was this angle here. No, that's what we were just watching. I'll find it and do another video, but let me know what you think. In most mock drafts, they have Tez Johnson being an 80th overall selection. Some of them fall into like 100th, some of them up as high as 62. So you're talking very, very end of day 2, like a second rounder, and probably you could get him in the 3rd round. And Broncos are probably going to get some compensatory picks if one of our backup quarterbacks goes elsewhere. And so you could end up having a free 3rd round draft pick that you throw on Tez Johnson. That could be pretty exciting. And the sky is the limit for what we got here with Bo Nix, because not only do you have Tez Johnson saying he was the best quarterback in last year's draft, all of the production that he had last year, he had 0 roughing the passer penalties awarded to him last year. And I just think as he gets more of that gravitas around him and he becomes more of a household name, it's just natural that the refs are going to start throwing flags and kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. And so it is pretty crazy that Bo Nix has had all of the success he had without any help from the referees, and I think that's definitely going to change as we see more of him. Last thing, and I think this is good for a couple of reasons, and that is we know the Broncos need a tight end, and this is the draft class of all of them to need a tight end because there are so many of them. And all we've heard all season long is that Tyler Warren, write him down, he's a top 5 overall pick. He's the best tight end in the entire draft class. Well, now you are hearing the rumors out of Indy right now is that Colston Loveland is actually the number 1 tight end board on most actual teams' boards. And we know Sean Payton's talked about that there's this train, like this media train where Mel Kiper says something and then everyone acts like that's the consensus amongst decision makers in the NFL. And there's a big disconnect between what a guy in his basement like me thinks and what an actual evaluator of talent thinks like Sean Payton. So why I love the fact that Colston Loveland is falling is that when it comes to a GM's opinion on one guy and rating one guy above the other, I trust Sean Payton to make that decision and to evaluate the talent. He proved it with Bo Nix. And so if there's discrepancy between like who's the better tight end, I know Sean Payton's going to figure that problem out and do it the right way. And so if all of a sudden you see, people are like, oh, Tyler Warren's better, Sean knows who's better. And if the person who's better is on the board, Sean's going to get him. And that's something we can all believe in. Oh, come on. That was halfway down.